The following Fox 4 Sports presentation is powered by the Clay Cooley Auto Group.
Much like, I guess, FDR with December 7th, 1941, a day that will live in infamy, I won't forget December 26, 2017.
I tried to stay positive throughout the whole thing, and obviously thinking about dying is the most negative you could possibly think.
All I could think about was the whole Witten thing with the lacerated spleen, playing through that. A little overblown. I got a kid that played with leukemia. Okay, Deuce?
I'm Mike Doocy. Thanks for being with us for Sports Sunday. Tonight, my conversation with Luke Laufenberg. Babe's son has been through quite a battle with a rare form of leukemia. He is now cancer-free. Tonight, father and son discuss this experience, the tough times over the past few months, and the hopeful attitude that helped Luke prevail. 6.5 weeks ahead of Oxnard, the Cowboys this week hold their mandatory 3-day minicamp at the Star, but there's a player with the Seattle Seahawks who's made a minicamp decision that might eventually affect how the Cowboys do business this offseason. Seattle safety Earl Thomas says he will stay away. He's holding out because he wants a new contract. He's entering the final year of a 4-year, $40 million deal. In a statement, Thomas says he wants to remain a Seahawk for the rest of his career, but feels he has earned the right, essentially, to have his contract extended now. This will intensify speculation about a possible Earl Thomas to the Cowboys trade. Thomas, the former Longhorn, who famously chased Jason Garrett down after a game last year and told the Cowboys coach to, quote, "Come get me." As for this Dallas defense, the Cowboys had a special visitor this past week at OTAs, future Hall of Famer Demarcus Ware, helping the guys work on technique. That other Demarcus Lawrence, had 14.5 sacks last year. He's playing under the franchise tag, but still showing up for work. Ware now on what Lawrence should expect and what we should expect from him coming off that big year.
As a pass rusher, you always think about consistency. And when you think about, Demarcus Lawrence, first, second, third year now, he had that big push on last year. Now is what have you done for me lately? It's a new year. You got to look at it that way. How can, what you can put in your toolbox this year to make yourself a little bit more consistent, because now you're going to have that bullseye on you, but also how can you make the other guys better with your leadership, because that's going to make you a lot better inside of the room, on the team, but also out there on the football field.
Demarcus.
All right, they're coming, though. Hang in there.
I tried to stay positive throughout the whole thing, and obviously thinking about dying is the most negative you could possibly think. So I never really thought about dying, or the thought of death, rather. I would say more what I was thinking about was just, finishing the treatment, and I honestly did, believe that the treatment was going to work.
And work it did. Luke Laufenberg is back on his feet, cancer-free after a 4-month battle with a rare form of leukemia. But obviously there were some extremely tough times. We talk about it tonight as we're back now on Sports Sunday. Babe Laufenberg's been in the public eye around here for 30 years, first as Aikman's backup, then as a broadcaster. He continues, of course, as the radio analyst for Cowboys games. Tonight, a look inside a private struggle fought by Babe's son, Luke, with help from his dad, from his mom, Joan, his brother, Joe Willie, and some high-profile friends. Babe Laufenberg remembers the moment he got the news that would devastate any parent.
Well, he was in the hospital for 10 days before they diagnosed him on the 26th of December. And they'd run every test known to man. Came back, doctor put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Your son has cancer." And I knew it wasn't going to be good news. He was just too sick and in too much pain. So much like, I guess, FDR with December 7th, 1941, a day that will live in infamy, I won't forget December 26, 2017.
Trying to counter that field goal, and the pass over the middle, and it's going to be caught near the 15-yard line. Nice two-handed grab by the big wide receiver, Luke Laufenberg, a 6'4", 232-pound competitor.
On December 2nd, Luke Laufenberg was a seemingly healthy college football player. Mesa Community College had some big catches in this bowl game. But 10 days later, he was suffering intense pain, mostly in his legs.
So I ended up going to a urgent care rather than an emergency room. They thought I just had the flu, gave me Tamiflu and some heavy ibuprofen, and then told me to take that and symptoms should clear up.
Only it did not clear up. He flew home the next day. 4 days later, he was again suffering unbearable pain. Checked into the hospital, and on December 26th came the diagnosis. Luke had Burkitt's leukemia, an aggressive form of blood cancer.
So that was kind of a shock when I got the news, but at the same time I was ready to just get started, get the pain away, and put it behind me.
Get you hooked up.
But first, months of intense chemotherapy. Luke started as a 235-pound football player. In the depths of his illness, he was a 155-pound cancer patient. Possible to say what the lowest point was? Can you think of any particular time where you thought, man, I don't know if this is going to work. Is this really worth it? I mean, were there moments like that? Is there any one that comes to mind?
Yeah, I think some of the darkest times were right when I got diagnosed was around college football bowl season. So I was sitting in my hospital bed watching all these bowl games, and it was really where I wanted to be. And instead I was, fighting my sickness.
Through it all, Luke's mom and dad were there, of course. His mother, herself a nurse, helping to keep his spirits up.
It was really difficult, but honestly, around me, they kept a really positive attitude. Some days I would have never known if it was even affecting them.
It was. Well, I remember Luke is hearing this for the first time. I would have to walk out of the room. To just watching your son, just go through that much pain.
In addition to mom and dad and brother Joe Willie, some high-profile guests paid visits to the hospital, Ohio State coach Urban Meyer among them, and some quarterbacks you might know.
I would just be watching TV, and then all of a sudden, Troy Aikman or Roger Staubach walks in. They actually came the same day, so it was pretty funny. I was literally just sitting there, and then in come two Hall of Fame quarterbacks, and I was like, all right, and then...
Two Hall of Fame quarterbacks and my dad.
Yeah.
Finally, on May 3rd, came the happy news. Luke Laufenberg was cancer-free. The treatment had worked. But for Babe, the emotions were unexpected.
So the day he was declared technically cancer-free was also the day he started his last round of chemo. So they tell us that, and then we go down to the infusion room, and in he goes and start the chemo in the port. And I was thinking I was going to have him wheel up a margarita machine or something. We're going to have a celebration here, and it was odd. It was not that feeling. And I think to some extent you had survivor's guilt because you knew that everybody in that hospital was not getting the same diagnosis.
Now Luke Laufenberg is back at work, having just celebrated his 20th birthday. His weight is back up, just hit the 200-pound mark. He's working out as hard as doctors will allow and hoping that football will be part of his future. Do you want to play football again?
Yes, sir, I do. I don't want this to really take away things from my old life that, I enjoyed to do. I don't want any limitations, and really I just want to get it behind me and forget about it and do everything I used to do.
Babe Laufenberg believes that football and the idea of returning to it helped keep his son alive during the toughest times. And looking back to that December 2nd bowl game, it's amazing to think that the leukemia was beginning to take hold. Luke wouldn't know that for another 24 days.
I think that's just the craziest thing, how fast this thing really hit me. December 2nd, I was 100% playing football, and then 10 days later I was in the hospital you know, running tests for, like my dad said, every disease possible.
All I could think about was the whole Witten thing with the lacerated spleen, playing through that. A little overblown. I got a kid that played with leukemia. Okay, Deuce?
As Luke said, his hope now is to eventually get back onto the football field. Hopes to first finish an associate's degree, then get a chance of playing a Division I ball. And yes, there's already been some interest. Burkitt's leukemia, as I mentioned, is a rare, fast-growing type of blood cancer. And although Luke will still most likely make monthly hospital visits for a while, given the treatment he received, he has every reason to believe that he will continue to live cancer-free. And by the way, as a TV anchor, it's my duty to point out that as an added benefit, Luke says his hair is starting to grow back as well.